Viewpoints on the talk station FM 107 AM 1240. Well, a topic that has been resonating here, at least at the talk station, and I will announce that I'm appreciative of seeing some communities step to the table, but I've got to give credit to our guest this afternoon, and I've done this to her on numerous occasions. I'm about to embarrass her, as always. Willo Kelly, and she is she wears multiple hats. She's Government Affairs Director for the Outer Banks Association of Realtors, Home Builders Association, and she is President of NC-20. She, along with our guest in studio, Judge Doug McCullough, are going to talk now about the issue of home insurance, and Willow's going to bring us up to date with the current state of the program and the proposals. And then we're going to get Judge McCullough in on the conversation to talk about his experience and something that Willow will remember, and that is a previous effort by the insurance industry. And Willow, I've talked with the judge just a few moments ago. I haven't looked at the details of his report, but I think you'll find it pretty interesting. So starting out, Willow, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Lockwood.
Thank you for taking the time to be with us. Now let's talk about, first off, what is the state of the insurance comments? We've been promoting the need for residents in North Carolina up till December 29th to send comments in, and I'm wondering, what have you learned?
Well, let's see. To backtrack just a little bit, there was a public comment period session held in Raleigh, or a public comment session held in Raleigh. I think that was on December 12th. At that time, they had only received about 94 comments on the filing, and the filing was actually submitted on November 17th. November 20th is when the Department of Insurance actually sent a press release out to inform the public that the Rate Bureau had submitted this filing, which represented an overall statewide increase of 18.7% for homeowners insurance. And that includes wind-only policies, and then there was almost up to a 40% request for tenants, renters insurance, and also condo owner policy insurance. So during the public comment session, I believe 5 people showed up from 10 to 4:30. 4 people spoke, me being one of them. And I did learn during that time on that day, only 94 people had commented thus far. The following week, and I think we had talked about this on your program, a week and a half later, I think we got it up to about 2,000 comments. Mm-hmm. The week, of course, we were right at the holidays. The filing was submitted right before Thanksgiving. Here it ends right after between Christmas and New Year's, and really did a strong push here from NC-20 to Home Builders and Realtors Association to get the information out. I mean, I was doing last-minute posts on Facebook, sending out emails to all of my colleagues that I knew of in Eastern North Carolina that could somehow disseminate the information. And as of today, in checking with the Department of Insurance, over 8,000 comments have been submitted. Congratulations, Lockwood, on all of your help, because I know that has a lot to do with your efforts. 8,000 comments. They're still counting the comments that came in that were postmarked by December 29th. And so that is very encouraging that people, unfortunately, in getting the news late, many people did participate and submit comments online.
You know, the one thing that is a little frustrating, and of course we're going to talk about this in a few minutes, is the disclosure on this. This is a sort of thing that, quite frankly, if you had not been paying close attention, we may not even have gotten the 2,000, let alone the possibility of 8,000 plus comments. And then one other aspect of this, the last time we got into a rate increase, which was now 2013, 2014?
They'll go back and say it was 2012. There was actually a rate filing done in 2012. Rates went into effect in 2013. We actually saw a rate filing in 2014, and then there was a hearing held on that rate filing, and there were rates that went into effect in 2015. The Rate Bureau appealed that, and actually it was 1 year ago, December, that the appellate court ruled in favor of the Department of Insurance in that their order was correct.
in that rate filing, comments were submitted, and that year you had close to 9,000 comments, as I recall.
Correct. It was. It might have been closer to 10,000, but we were way ahead of it. I mean, this happened November 20th, like I said, and the timing was similar. This rate filing was 2,000 pages. It was in two parts. The one part dealt predominantly with the modeling data, of which two models were used to come up with these proposed rates in this filing, unlike in years past where there was only one model used. We did have information from the last the hearing that was held on the rate filing in 2014 to really scrutinize a little better this filing, but it took me probably 2 weeks to get through this filing, and with the holidays and going out of town, timing was not so good on this one. So in organizing efforts, it probably wasn't until 2 weeks after the filing was held, almost the second week of December, actually, that efforts really took place to get the word out when we didn't see it in the press. I didn't see any articles throughout the state on this filing to inform folks in other parts of the state that, hey, you're facing a 25% increase as well. So I'm sure if we would have had, the troops on the ground, so to speak, and that grassroots effort in place earlier, we could have really gotten a lot more than 10,000 comments.
I was talking with some folks earlier today, and the comment was made, why is Eastern North Carolina facing such an increase in light of the fact that the Eastern region already pays a lion's share, I say a lion's share, a very exorbitant, my description, premium for wind pool insurance? The ramifications of this, and we're going to get into this in a few minutes, Willo, are that, and we're seeing this now in Florida, as a matter of fact, recent story I read, I think it was in the Washington Post, the gentrification of Florida, because Florida now is facing increased premiums for everything as a result of sea level rise, wind pool, and all other insurance policies, that folks are just not able to live there any longer with modest income. So it's forcing people out of their homes, and it's going to basically increase the availability to homeowners who can afford to pay for their homes with cash, therefore in ignoring the requirements for insurance. One quick question before we go to this break. The issue related to the rate filing. Is this a rate filing that, if I understood correctly, was negotiated with the insurance commissioner, Mike Causey?
The rate filing is completely independent. The rate filing is done by the North Carolina Rate Bureau, which is made up of, I want to say, about 200 companies that write insurance in the state of North Carolina. And so the Rate Bureau is separate from the North Carolina Department of Insurance. And it is also separate, I want everyone to be aware, that the beach plan that it's commonly referred to, the NCIUA, has nothing to do with rates. So I want to make sure that that's clear. They're independent of any rate-making process or how the rates are set. They kind of sit out there by themselves as the separate residual market wind pool that was created by the legislature, but is actually managed and is kind of under a plan of operation by the Department of Insurance, but is actually also made up of insurance companies writing in the state of North Carolina. But it is separate from rates. Your wind rates are based on what the Rate Bureau submits to the Department of Insurance and then is subsequently approved or negotiated.
Okay, that's the home insurance we're talking about.
Homeowners and wind-only insurance. This rate filing represents an increase of up to 25% for homeowners, which in most parts of the state includes fire liability and wind. Okay. In our part of the state, we have a separate wind policy in most cases, and it will affect that as well, and also condo owners insurance and also renters insurance, of which those two types of insurance are facing a 40% increase.
Just let it rest right there, 40%.
And so, if you're renting here, and you don't have to own your house, the owner's going to get hit. Right. And then if you're required to have tenants insurance, renters insurance, then that's going to go up too. When you talk about gentrification, and I mean, I received several phone calls when word finally got out and said, please contact me if you have any questions, of people that said, I'm on a fixed income.
Right.
I still have a mortgage. I've refinanced. I've this or that, and I still have a mortgage, and I'm required to carry this coverage, and I'm not going to be able to afford to live here anymore.
We're talking, I was going to say flood insurance. I've been talking so much about flood insurance. We're going to talking homeowners insurance. Thank you very much to all of you that heeded the call to make comment to the North Carolina Department of Insurance. Joining us this afternoon, Willo Kelly and also Judge Doug McCullough. He was now retired, but he was on the state NC Court of Appeals that heard a previous request for a rate increase. Willo, you were saying something to me just a moment off air, and the judge did not hear this. He's here in the studio. The filing, or the decision in 2014, what did you say about that just a moment ago?
Well, the hearing that was held in late 2014, at the end of that hearing, the insurance commissioner issued the order of hearing. Mm-hmm. And in the order of hearing, that 350-some page document, as I recall, I read it and I jumped for joy. It was an early Christmas present to me because it pretty much justified everything we had been saying since 2008, 2009 in working on homeowners insurance, that we felt we were overpaying for coverage. The losses that we incurred did not justify the rate we were paying. We felt that within the rate filing formula, there were deviation factors that we questioned. There were reinsurance costs that we questioned. The rate formula in and of itself, we just felt that the rates were unfairly discriminatory to the coast. And so I, like I said, jumped for joy when I read that document.
And with that, let's introduce Judge Doug McCullough, who was on that court at the time. And Judge, good afternoon again. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Lockwood.
Let's talk about this court case. What was the upshot of it?
Well, after the order that Willo was talking about was entered, the Rate Bureau appealed the commissioner's determination of zero increase, and that goes to the Court of Appeals. And we review that in what's called the whole record test. We look at that 350-page document and the exhibits that were attached to it and see if there's substantial evidence that justifies the findings of fact and conclusions of law that the commissioner made. And we upheld his decision in an opinion that I filed in August of 2016, in which the Supreme Court of North Carolina denied review in December of 2016. So that commissioner's determination of the zero rate increase was justified, and we upheld it, and that, my opinion, joined by two of my colleagues, became basically the law of this case and the law of that rate increase. And we found that their attacks on the commissioner's determinations were not supported by the evidence.
Now, in the process, Willo, you said that, in fact, the commissioner had recommended that in some instances there would actually be a decrease. Is that correct?
That is correct. Within the order, as he's referring to the statewide average increase, the legislature had changed some language with regards to the rate-making process that the insurance commissioner can only set rates between the current rate and the proposed rate,
right,
which means rates could never go down. However, it didn't say by territory in the language in the statute. It just said between the current rate and the filed rate. So we were very dismayed by that and saying, well, we feel like we should see a decrease. Our rates can never go down. However, Wayne Goodwin at that time, the insurance commissioner, felt that that reflected the statewide average rate. So therefore, statewide average came to zero when, in fact, there were ordered decreases up to 18% in areas in eastern North Carolina.
And yet now, 3 years later, we're looking, I say 3 years later, of course, went through all the court cases, but we're now looking at another rate increase. And this goes back to the efforts to justify that. Willo, where is the explanation for the justification of this rate increase? And isn't it not required? Well, I'm looking at you, Judge, but should we not, as the taxpayers, have some disclosure other than a very complex, arcane, did you say 1,000 pages or 2,000 pages?
2,000.
2,000-page document.
The arguments that the rate insurance or the rate bureau makes are somewhat arcane to the average public, and
wow.
I haven't gone into the details of my opinion, but I will tell you that the attack they made on the commissioner's prior determination fell into four major categories, and each of them is very technical. One is underwriting profits. Were they adequate or were they inadequate under constitutional principles? They made a second argument dealt with the hurricane modeling. They did the cost of reinsurance, because no one insurance company pays all the claims they buy reinsurance, and how much that should that cost factor be that's passed on to the consumer. And the last one was net cost in geographic zones that Willo has referred to recently. Those were the four major attacks on the commissioner's determination, and we upheld that there was adequate evidence in the record to sustain every finding that he made, and that was upheld not only by myself and my two colleagues, but reviewed by the North Carolina Supreme Court, and that determination wasn't final until December of 16. Then they immediately come out and file something else. My guess is they have polished up the same arguments they made before, the same statistical models, and are attempting to justify it. To me, it sounds like what we in the law say is old wine in new bottles.
Willo, what next? Now, first off, there's no guarantee that there will be a hearing, is there?
No, there is no guarantee there will be a hearing. I am assuming, or I'm thinking that the insurance commissioner, considering he's a freshman, so to speak, on a rate filing, that he will probably negotiate a settlement with the rate bureau, and we will see a lower rate than what is being requested here, effective July 1, 2018. I don't think he's going to call for filing, only because of the lengthy process that it is. It is like a trial.
Perfect.
And while it says it's a public hearing, I have a lot of people ask me, well, we'll be able to comment again after December 29th. No, December 29th was the last opportunity for the public to comment on the rate filing. It is a public hearing in which the public can attend, but the public can offer no opinion, input, or feedback on the filing at that time. The Department of Insurance will bring in their witnesses. The Rate Bureau will bring in their witnesses and testimony, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what happened in this process in 2014. It was the first time a hearing had been held on a rate filing since 1993. And again, overjoyed that the hearing was called, because I wanted to see what happened when there was full scrutiny of the rate filing. And we know what happened when there was the full scrutiny of the rate filing. There were several questions that came up and issues with regards to profit, as has already been mentioned, the net cost of reinsurance, deviation factors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
You know, we're going to take a quick break. I want to finish.
And I like old wine in a new bottle, because I think that's what we got. We now have it, old wine in a new bottle, with another variety of wine, in that there were two models used in this one instead of one.
Okay, talking with the representatives of the Commissioner of Insurance, Mike Causey, Barry Smith, I think is his name, mentioned that one of the great concerns was, Willo, that if we are continuing to hold down or fight these premium increases, insurance companies will stop writing in North Carolina. I know that the judge has a comment to make about this. You're up first. What's your response to that?
I say baloney. They're not going to stop writing in North Carolina. It's too profitable, and especially on the coast, it's profitable. The beach plan took in $1.9 billion in 5 years and only paid out $235 million in losses. Had we not had legislation passed in 2009 that said they can't take distributions from the plan anymore, the $1.8 billion that has amassed in the surplus would not be there. I mean, there is that has been kind of just evidence to these other companies coming in to saying, hey, it's pretty profitable to write insurance in especially eastern North Carolina. And granted, we've been very fortunate that we have not suffered the losses that other states have had, but it's cyclical in that, every 10 years, typically, you're going to have the big one. You're going to have a big, huge loss, and then you'll have good years. The good years should make up for the bad years. However, they want every year that we pay to the worst possible scenario, and then, it has to be the good year every year and then some.
Well, another comment, and Judge, you made a comment a moment ago?
Well, I said that we're the second or third fastest growing state in the country, the 10th biggest state, and they don't want to play in our marketplace. Come on. We're having companies come in from Florida who are writing cheaper insurance here and undercutting prices already with Frontline and a couple of other companies that are just starting to make incursions.
I know the challenge we have on this one, and I'm curious, Willo.
Oh, and let's not mislead the public now. Just because the rates don't change, they make more money every year. They make more money every year through an increase in the value of the policy due to inflation rate factors, which are not legislatively controlled, and they can apply up to 10, 12% to your policy year after year to the value on your policy. So they're going to make more money in premium every year, regardless of whether there's a rate increase, and now they're applying fees to your policy.
Right. And so, okay, the house you're living in was valued at $200,000 last year. Now we're going to raise the value to $210,000 or $220,000, and so you're going to charge them more for they'd be charged accordingly now to the value of the home.
And your deductible's higher, so you're more out of pocket.
Well, one of the problems from a reviewing court viewpoint is we have a formula that's a little bit more generous to the insurance companies than maybe it should be in the law, and so we only look at their premium. We only look at their premium profits, and we don't look at the overall profitability of their investments and a lot of other things, fees they might collect, or and all of that. So their profitability is we're kind of like the Titanic iceberg. We're only looking at the part that's above the water, and there's a huge amount of profitability that we don't even take into account when we're trying to determine whether the rate was set at the correct number or not.
Of which reinsurance is a big part of that investment.
Wow. All right. Here's a question for you, Willo. As president of NC-20, there's some concern as to whether or not you said earlier, I think, and I think the judge kind of agreed with you on this one, that as a freshman, the commissioner of insurance might be hesitant or disinclined totally to pursue a hearing because, Judge, you said this is a very intense period.
The last one was 11 full days of hearing with it's like a trial with witnesses on both sides, so lots of exhibits. I think there were 350 exhibits mainly, and probably 1,000 pages of transcript that was generated, all of which ended up in my office, by the way, when we started writing our opinion. And my opinion was 56 pages, so I condensed it down considerably.
Yeah, obviously, from 300 to 56, and of course we're talking 2,000 right now for the initial rate filing. Willo, in light of the fact that there may be some hesitancy about conducting a hearing, would it be worth our while to contact our legislative representatives? It would
be absolutely worthwhile. I think every policyholder in the state should be contacting their legislators and saying, and pleading, hey, I think we need to look at this a little closer and be paying attention here to some of these things that, in my opinion, they aren't adding up.
Oh, well.
I mean, the rate disparity here between, a $3,016 win rate to elsewhere in the state that might only be $400,
right.
Where there's an overlay win zone from NOAA, there's a problem.
Okay.
And when we brought this to everyone's attention, that we found out 32 counties in the city of Charlotte had never even seen a rate increase in 20 years.
Judge, wrap it up.
One of the things that the commissioner should understand is he has a cadre of career employees who have great expertise and testified to telling effect during the last hearing. So he should not be skittish about going forward. He's got the people who are in his employ today who know this subject thoroughly, and they can get ready for a hearing and really test the numbers and the theories that the Rate Bureau is putting forward, and that's what ought to happen, transparency.
In our conclusion for the program this evening, to all those that have submitted your comments, thank you very much. To others who are thinking about it, contact your legislative representatives. I don't care where you are, contact your legislative representatives. To Willo Kelly and to Judge McCullough, thank you for being with us this afternoon.